Hi everyone, my name is Diana Newen from Trinity Health and Living, and today I wanted to chat to you about past lives. And before we actually dive into the past life, I feel it's important to actually establish the base ground, my underlying belief systems as to why I'm reaching the particular conclusions of what I'm going to be telling you today. So obviously, with past lives, it therefore means that I believe in that concept of past lives, and I believe in the concept of reincarnation to an extent. And for a very long time, I was brought up as Catholic, so Catholic for 30-something years, and Catholics do not believe in the concept of reincarnation. And so, it took me a very long time to actually come around to the concept that actually perhaps there is this concept of past lives there, and that our souls have actually incarnated in this earth or in other aspects of the universe a number of times. So that's kind of the first belief system that I have. The second belief system that I have is that as a human being in a physical body, we have a soul which is larger than our physical body, and it's almost consciousness that drives how we act. Now, this soul actually chooses our experience in life. That's my belief. And so before you actually decide to incarnate in whatever life it is that you want, your soul, because it's consciousness wanting to experience all aspects of itself, chooses what it's going to do and the lessons it wants to learn in this particular life. So, and in doing so, that consciousness, the soul, will actually deliberately choose your mother, your father, the family, your ethnicity, where you're born, the lessons that you're going to be learning throughout life, and all that sort of stuff. So it's almost like my belief is that a lot of all of this sort of stuff is chosen by our soul prior to incarnation, which then includes the fact that we sign up for certain lessons in life, and other souls kind of agree that they will play a certain part in our life in order to teach us a certain lesson or whatever. So that concept is called soul contracts. I would recommend that you go and read Caroline Myss's Sacred Contracts book, because she talks about that very well. But initially, two souls will come together and have an agreement in terms of the part they will play in your particular life incarnation, and they can be there for a long time, they can be there for a very short time. But there's always some sort of soul contract agreement which is going on. And my little cat's come out. So, all right. So let's talk a little bit more about past lives then. So as a shamanic practitioner, my concept and perception of the world is different to what the normal status quo would be. And in that sense, what I believe is that there is actually no concept of time and space. So for us, we kind of know that, time is almost a linear sort of thing. So, minutes pass, seconds pass, minutes pass, hours, days, months. And so it's almost like this is our time. For shamanic practitioners, we actually flip that around and say the only time is the present moment. And so everything actually occurs at the same time. So for us, time is like this. And so for me, when we talk about the concept of past lives, I use that terminology only because that's kind of the terminology which is out there in, spiritual circles or whatever. But my belief is that a better term for that is concurrent lives. Because if time is not linear and everything's occurring at this point in time, then we are actually all having an experience as whatever incarnations that we have, and there's multiple ones. Like, we have been in multiple incarnations, okay, at the same time. we can access all of that right now, sort of thing. And so in past lives, because the soul is trying to experience many different things, we would have done many different things in past lives. So in this life right now, I am female. I know past lives where I've been male. I also know past lives where, like, I've been a child who has then passed, so I haven't been able to get to adulthood. And I've also had past lives where I have reached adulthood and, worked in these healing sorts of arts. But also I've had past lives where I worked in the healing arts, but not necessarily for the light either. And so there's always like this dualistic play in terms of what you've done in your past lives, because it's your consciousness trying to understand what it is like to be that particular person. And so, don't be surprised that in a past life, you're probably a murderer. You're most likely murdered. Like, everyone's probably got that past life where they were a witch and were hanged or something like that. We were all probably in Egypt. We were all probably in Atlantis. We were all probably in Lemuria. All of that sort of stuff, is pretty much our soul just trying to experience what it is like doing particular things. And so sometimes what happens is, well, not sometimes what happens is when the soul incarnates into a particular incarnation, so, being birthed and all that, obviously we come through and we actually forget. We go through this veil and we forget that we had agreed beforehand. We're going to come down and this is what we're going to do. We're going to learn these life lessons, all that sort of stuff. And so our choices throughout this lifetime can actually impact, can actually stop what our soul had originally wanted for us to learn. And if that's the case, if we go through this incarnation and we pass over without having fulfilled what the lesson or the experiment is that the soul had for us for this incarnation, then we're going to come back again, maybe in a different, probably in a different looking body and all that, but we'll still have that same lesson that needs to be learned. And I guess in Buddhism, that is kind of called karma in some aspects. And so you're going to continue to come back until you've actually learned that lesson, and then you're able to then move on and learn another lesson or move on to wherever it is you want, sort of thing. So sometimes what happens is, because for me, I view time as being concurrent, everything happens concurrently. Sometimes the energy of what's going on in a concurrent life of ours elsewhere can actually come in and start affecting us in this present moment where our consciousness resides. And let me give you a couple of examples about that. So, for example, you might have a phobia around something. You might have a phobia of being buried alive, and you can't explain it whatsoever, because obviously in this lifetime you haven't been buried alive, so why would you be scared about that? And for a lot of us, like, the concept of being buried alive now, that's not, it's not a common way to go. So why would you be afraid of that? That could very well be linked to a past or concurrent life of yours where you actually were buried alive, and that's how you died. And the energy of that particular fear at that present moment is somehow coming up and affecting you in this being right now. And as a shamanic practitioner and, past life regression therapist and hypnotherapist and kinesiologist and all that kind of stuff, we have the ability to actually go back at that moment and change the energy so that the fear no longer exists, so that something else happens, so that that particular instant of your life is shifted, the energy is shifted. And when that happens, you no longer have that fear in this particular lifetime. Similar to, I think there was a client that I had who had a fear of being in enclosed spaces, especially in an elevator sort of thing. And then, yeah, I can't exactly remember what it was, but I do know that it was connected to a past life. And then we cleared that. And literally, like after that session, she walked from my apartment into the elevator with me and she was absolutely fine. She was like, oh my God, you know. And so that's an example of how a past life can affect you right now. Phobias that you have. Another example is something's going to actually manifest in you physically, and that's a result of, you know, a past life, concurrent life. So you'll hear stories of people having birthmarks in certain places. It's most likely that was a place where the person suffered trauma for them to pass on in that past life. And so that birthmark is kind of like a symbol or a mark saying, hey, you know, in this particular lifetime you might have been shot an arrow or something like that, and it shows up in this lifetime. For me, you know, for some reason my left shoulder, it plays up quite a bit, and I know that there's a lot of past life stuff in there, and it's not just one. There's layers. So I've cleared quite a bit of the past life stuff in the shoulder, but I know that there's still quite a lot more left in there because the movement isn't as smooth as it should be. And as a remedial massage therapist, I also know that it's not a muscular thing. And this is the thing. You know, another example from a physical perspective is I've had clients come in with, you know, a bunged up shoulder, and it's been like that for ages. And they've gone and they've seen heaps of massage therapists. They've had physiotherapists working through the muscles. You know, they'll get relief for about 1 or 2 days, and then it just goes back to the same. Like they haven't been able to find anyone that can actually solve the underlying cause. And they'll come to me and I'll touch it and I go, this is actually a past life. You were actually trapped, for example, in a boulder while you were climbing a rock or a mountain or something like that. So it feels like your shoulder is actually pinned down by a big rock. And once we recognize that and we clear that energy, then all of a sudden, and this has happened on at least 2 or 3 occasions with different clients, their shoulder mobility has come back. And their mobility is so much more different to what it was like by just getting the physical side done. Like they haven't had to come back to see me because their shoulder's fine, right? So that's another example of how the past life can actually affect you physically. And also, your interactions with people can be based on the soul contract that you'd agreed with that person in a past life or before you actually decide to incarnate in this lifetime. There might be karma which is playing out between you two, for example. So I'll talk about me. There's a particular person in my life that for some reason I always, I never felt comfortable around. I always felt like there was a little bit of, jealousy perhaps, but this energy of constantly wanting to undermine me. And, a lot of us going on this path, we always think, okay, that person is a reflection of me, all right, what is it that I'm doing, blah, 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 blah. And I was racking my brain and I really couldn't figure out what it was. It was only when I actually went and had a shamanic healing, and it was part of my shamanic training that this came up, that I realized that there was a soul contract between me and this particular person. And it had gone back through lifetimes where we were both actually sorceresses. So we were utilizing magic as power, and it was just like this constant competition. It's like, I'm more powerful than you, I'm more powerful than you, all that sort of stuff. And so then through the lifetimes, because we never really actually learnt that lesson, that dynamic was always playing out between us. Always. And so when I managed to, with the help of my shamanic practitioners, clear that from me, it's really funny because the universe will actually send you a test very quickly after you've cleared it to see whether you've actually integrated it into yourself or not. I received a phone call from a client who wanted to see me, and she also, she goes between us, sort of thing. And I pretty much was just like, look, I can't help you because I'm not there. So go and see this other woman and tell her this, and she'll be able to sort it out. And I didn't feel any sort of competition or anything like that, and that was it, sort of thing. And so certain dynamics between you and someone else, like a relationship dynamics, can play out from past lives and kind of come through in this particular lifetime as well. And a lot of the times it might be, how when a person triggers you, or it might just be, there could be inner child stuff at play as well. But, and then sometimes these emotions will come up when you see a particular person and you can't really explain why. That could be a past life thing as well. When I used to be a lawyer and work in the corporate environment, there was a particular workmate. He was actually my boss at that point in time. And I'd gone to have a healing and was told that my boss and I actually had past lives together, and I was getting rolled up because I never felt that I was being acknowledged for the work that I did. So in that particular past life, we were in Rome, and both of us were kind of like government officials. He was an authority, I think a step up from me or something like that. But I was always the one doing the work. He would always take the freaking credit for it. And so, I was getting really rolled up in this particular lifetime around that, and managed to get a healing around it. But also, thankfully, he was quite open to this sort of stuff. So when I told him about it, he was just like, oh my God, what can I do to how can I say sorry and all that kind of stuff for that sort of thing, and, resolved it that way. We're actually really, really good friends right now as well. And so that's another example of how, past lives can come into play. Or concurrent lives, really. So for those who, are kind of a bit skeptical about the whole past life sort of thing, just think about it. It's just energy, and it's a label for a type of energy that's going on. It's like when you go into kinesiology sessions or anything like that, you're doing the muscle testing to find out what it is. It's because it's coming up and triggering you, or, working, having a pattern within your life, because the energy of where you're at right now in 2020 is very similar to the energy in that concurrent lifetime, that past life. And so that's why, you might be going absolutely fine, then all of a sudden, out of the blue, something happens, and then you notice that your life just is not the same as it was before. And that can be because your energy has now, the vibration of your energy now has matched what's going on in your current lifetime. So in a way, it's almost like, you're playing these two lifetimes at the same time, not realizing that actually one energy shouldn't actually be with you in this particular incarnation, and it's something that's coming from and needs to be resolved with another incarnation of yours. Which is why healing modalities like shamanic healing, past life regressions, hypnotherapy, kinesiology can really help you identify that sort of thing and then kind of move it on. So I know I've kind of babbled on quite a lot, and I most likely have not answered all of your questions. So if you do have any questions around this, because it is a pretty big topic, feel free to just email me. I'll put the details below, or message me on Instagram or Facebook at Trinity Health and Living, and I'll do my best to help you out. But I thought I might give you a couple of tools so that you can at least play around to at least just discover what a particular past life you might have had. And it can be, just keep an open mind about it, all right? Because you'll be surprised with what can come up. And for example, you actually might go to a past life where you weren't a human being. In my perception of the world, I believe that extraterrestrials exist, and I believe that there's life on other planets and all that kind of stuff. And so I know that I've had past lives on other planets. I know that. And I've kind of been in contact with a couple of my guides and all that kind of stuff from those planets and all that sort of thing. And also when you're doing a past life regression, it's important, like, it's pretty much like just a movie that kind of plays in front of you sort of thing, and there's no judgment behind it, because again, your consciousness, like, you went through that because your consciousness wanted to experience what it was like. So there's no judgment that, oh my god, what I did back then was bad, or I was really good back then, or all that sort of stuff. It just is what it is. All right, so some ways in which you can start to tap into what past lives you have. You can use oracle cards. I've got this one, which is Past Lives by Doreen Virtue, who no longer creates these sorts of cards anymore. But these cards kind of, can give you a bit of an idea of, like, perhaps a past life that, you might have had before. Like, this one kind of, it depends on how you use them, right? But whatever comes up, this one kind of says that you were abandoned as a child in a past life. So in this lifetime, it could lead to abandonment issues, especially if your current childhood was actually pretty good, in terms of receiving the love from your parents and all that kind of stuff. And, you were with your birth family sort of thing. Things around being an orphan, being left alone, not being loved, that could come from a particular past life, and these cards also might say you were a medicine man or medicine woman in a past life. I know that for sure for me. And also, the thing about past lives is, you actually, within our body, we hold all of this, right? Again, this is my belief, is that we're just like this matrix of information. So we're a hologram. And so within ourselves is stored all of the information that we ever need. And so that also means that if we choose to do so, and sometimes it might actually come quite naturally, we can go back and obtain the wisdom, obtain all of the knowledge that we've had from our previous incarnations so that we can use it in this lifetime. And so, for example, for me, the arts, as an Asian, I typically went through the whole learning piano as a child, growing up and all that kind of stuff. But I know that my talents in music come from previous lives, because there will be times where I will listen to particular music I've never heard before, and I will know what comes next in terms of music. And there'll be other times where I can just listen to music and then just sit at the piano and start playing. And that, I just know that in past lives, it's a culmination of the amount of wisdom that I've had from music in particular, from past lives. And so, yeah, you can draw, call back your wisdom from those past lives, the wisdom and the knowledge that you had before, in order to help you now, which is kind of like where I'm at the moment personally, where I'm trying to draw back all the wisdom that I've learned from the past lives in order to help in my shamanic healings and whatever my life purpose is, sort of thing. So that's one tool. Other tools to help: past life regression meditations. Heaps of them for free on YouTube. You can just look it up and search it and go for whatever works for you. When you're doing that, you might want to use certain crystals. I don't know all the crystals off the top of my head in terms of those that will actually help you with past life ones, but amethyst is really good for that sort of thing. And again, just search and be drawn to the crystal that works for you. and have that crystal with you while you're meditating, for example. And even another tool is, even before you go to bed, have the intent that you want to know what a particular past life it is that you've had, and keep a journal or a diary by your bedside, because it'll probably come through your dreams, and if you want to know about it when you wake up, write it down before you forget. So, you know, that's some ways. And you know, obviously sometimes if you go and just get a sort of treatment like, you know, biodynamic craniosacral therapy, for example, or remedial massage, sometimes when you go into that real relaxed state, certain things will pop into your awareness. If you have that as your intent, then most likely that will pop into your awareness, sort of thing. So, you know, I've had, like in biodynamic craniosacral therapy, I've had past life regressions back to the Big Bang. I've had past life regressions back to, this is going to sound really weird, like literally the moment when my dad's sperm impregnated my mother's egg. Like, I saw it. So at that point in time, I don't think my soul had come in yet, but I saw the process of it actually happening, and then it being embedded in the womb, you know, the wall of the womb and all that sort of stuff. So some trippy things can really happen when you're doing this, but just know that whatever your experience is, whatever information comes through, it is true for you, okay? No one else can tell you whether it's wrong or right. If it's come through to you, it's come through you for a particular reason. So, you know, try that. Another way would be to go on a shamanic drum journey. Just pointing to my drum at the back there, with a shamanic practitioner, because the drumming can get you into that state to go on a journey with your guides in order to just, you know, find out what you've been in past lives or anything like that. So I know this has been a pretty long video, but I hope you found it useful a little bit and gotten some information about it. As I said, you know, the concept of past lives or concurrent lives is huge, and there's so many different layers in it, and so many different ways in which it can affect you, that it's hard for me to really, you know, articulate it all in the one video. So if you do have any questions around it, please feel free to just drop me a message, drop me an email, and we can discuss it. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you next time. Bye.